Hi guys, and welcome to today's episode of thinQtalks. We have a very interesting lineup of folks here for you today. What we're trying to do today actually is a mix of millennial engineers who may be engineering and not engineering anymore. And I'll take that opportunity to introduce the folks here with us today. We have Sahil from the Minimalist. Sahil is a recent grad from IIT Bombay. From energy to brand design, it's been a shift over a little period of time. Next up, we have Ranveer Allahbadia. Anybody watching this content has probably seen a lot more of his content than any of the content we're creating. The man behind Biceps, and a very dear friend as well. Ranveer has moved from engineering into influencer marketing, affiliate marketing, and now structuring that in a much more holistic manner to take things forward, apart from creating content himself. And last but not least, we have Aatur. Aatur is the co-founder of Infivention Technologies, the guys behind Square Off, the world's first automated chessboard and connected board gaming device. So I'd like to maybe just set the floor right at the outset by talking a little bit about, would you do it all over again?
Answer would straight up be no. Like, I don't know, man. Like, I just look back at it like, okay, like, thank God it's done. I know a lot of people say things like, oh, but you know what you've gained from it? And you've gained the problem-solving ability. I don't know. I just feel like I could have gained more by going to like a media college or something like that. Maybe even business. Yeah. But engineering, I personally didn't have the best time. Again, IIT, the kind of education they give you is different. He'll disagree. But Mumbai University, not so much.
Plus one to that, even I've been through Mumbai University, so I agree with what you're saying.
And that's coming from an engineer who's currently working on hardware and building connected boards.
If you've done engineering from anywhere outside like the top colleges in India, you'll hear a lot of people saying this.
Yeah. So let's ask someone who's gone to a top college in India, arguably.
So, like, I wouldn't do it all over again, definitely, because getting out of IIT was more difficult than getting in.
First few people to ever say that.
So, like, the day I graduated, so the last year was actually spent in wondering if I would ever be able to pass out and how many attempts it would take to get out. So, definitely, I wouldn't do it again, but the entire experience was a lot of fun. Engineering was it.
I'll also tell you that maybe you're talking to the wrong people. Like, other people give you better answers. We completely like switched over.
So that's a challenge that remains in the early stage or technology environment or entrepreneurship environment in India today in general, right? You have a plethora of engineers, some who are continuing to engineer, and some who have stepped away to build successful businesses, create fantastic brands, and do their own thing. And I think that's the idea of actually sitting down and having the conversation with people who are on both sides of the table.
So you know what, like, when you play a video game, and you like are on the last stage and you've tried many times but you can't get to, finally you get through and then you save game. Like, that was the feeling that I had when I completed engineering. Like, I want to save this stage, I don't want to go back. I still get dreams that I'm back there.
So what happens is, in real life, adding to what he said, you get a lot more challenges, but you enjoy working on those much better than what engineering is. Like, you're force-fed that this is what you have to do, you're restricted, bounded. But in real life, you're like, oh, this is very difficult, but I'm going to enjoy every minute.
Aatur, your investors are watching as well.
I also feel like, and you guys will agree with me when I say this, and this is something that only an engineering student will say. Like, a lot of, again, nothing against the professors or, the people, but a lot of the professors or even your peers who are very, like, into that whole engineering life believe that, like, there isn't really a world outside of engineering. Yes. They don't believe that there's, like, any career outside of it. So when you switch up your career and then when it works out for you, you realize, okay, so they were wrong. But for 4 years, I was told that, nothing's going to work out.
So I didn't see my professors as often to know all this. But I think there's merit in what he's saying because they tend to be a little myopic. Yeah. Getting out gives you a lot of...
So what is one, since you've been very vocal about what you all enjoyed and what you all didn't enjoy about your lives as engineers, what is one anecdote or one thing that perhaps, if at all, your time in college taught you, which you still deploy in your own enterprises today? And they're all varied, obviously, but one anecdote you perhaps remember, which still rings a bell today.
So there's one thing that I always look back to. It's kind of on a serious note, but it's what keeps me and my team driving. So there was this one time when we were working on this chessboard project. It wasn't called Square Off back then. And, there was an opportunity for us to go to Rome, Maker Faire Rome. It was our first international trip from college. And we needed funds because that was quite expensive. It was a 10-day long trip. And this was to showcase the project at an international platform, Maker Faire Room. So we had to give a presentation in front of investors and the chairperson of the Somaya group, the committee, and they were to approve if this would go well or no. And just 2 days before the presentation, things started going terribly wrong, and you know, we came to a point where we were confident that this would not work. But then again, as the 3-people team that we decided that there is only one way out of this. Let's give maximum that we can in the 2 days, and then for those 2 days and those 2 nights we barely slept. We stayed back in college. We gave in everything. Nothing, the outside world did not exist for us, and the night before we were all up and up until 5 a.m. We were sure that this is not going to work. We've given in our best, and we were like about to quit, but we are like, okay, we've got last 2 hours. The presentation is at 9 a.m. and it's 5 a.m. right now, you know, so let's just break this through, and if it still doesn't happen, we know we tried our best. And I don't know, from 5 a.m. all the way to 8 a.m., the next 3 hours were like magic for us. Things started falling in pieces. It worked, and at 8 a.m. we were ready. We just washed our faces, barely dressed well for the meet. We went for the presentation. People just loved it. Like, everyone was on their toes when they saw magic motion of the chess pieces happening, and you know, the happiness that we got, that yes, you know, this worked, and we were so thankful that we didn't quit. And that's what kept us going. So whenever some things are not happening right, maybe, you know, with the team or with the plans of the product, we just look back to that moment and like, if we did not quit then, we are not quitting now. We'll give in all our best. And we did go to the event. We got approvals, and that event was the turning point for the product, for us as a team, and that's how we've taken things a different route from there. So that's what something we look back to.
There is one interesting story from my final year, which, you know, talks about the provocation that we bring at the Minimalist. So it has been with me for a while, and then it has translated into this. So I'll just talk about an incident. So this was my final year valedictory function, where you're about to get your degree, hopefully, and they sort of want to share some last moments with you, congratulate you. So everyone's called to a room. There are like 200 people, including professors. And this is supposed to be an informal gathering with professors. So, you know, that's kind of an oxymoron, but still. And so they decided to do something shit. They gave us chits with numbers, and then they called out a number and that guy to come on stage and do something. And as luck has it, my number came first, and I went there on stage, and I was presented with a bowl of chits. I had to pick out one, and it had stuff like the most awkward stuff written, like dance, music, sing a song, crack a joke, and shit like that. And I was like, this happened when I was 5 years old. Like, uncle would come and say, Gana gao beta. It was all over again. And I went there and I picked out a chit, and it had joke/mimicry written on it. And my friends were like very excited, dikha na, abhi dikha. And I was like clueless, like, what the hell should I say? There's professors, I can't even say something bad or dirty. And first of all, I just said, mic is not working, I'm not doing this. But then they quickly banged the mic and said, it's working, like, go for it, tell your joke. So I was there standing in front of 200 people, I didn't know what to say. And I just stood there for a second, and then I picked up the mic and said, very solemnly, very soberly, like, in the last 5 years, I've studied a lot. So, and the entire hall erupted at that point. My friends started banging the desks because they knew what kind of a loser I was. And even the professors started laughing, the ones who had given me like a 4 out of 10.
Where's the box of chits?
Not now, not now. So I just left because my joke was over.
So I think note to self, we have to keep a bowl of chits ready every time Sahil comes to the office.
I'm not happy I said that. But anyway, so that incident sort of kind of taught me that you should, you know, the power of thinking on your feet is very important, and that provocation is very important in all aspects of life, and that's a core value that I've taken to this company as well. So that is just one interesting anecdote.
The power of thinking on your feet is the main thing anyone gains from engineering, because everyone delays all their work, all their tasks, and then finally one day before the paper, one day before your project submission, you do something, and then you end up passing. That's what engineering in India gives you.
So one of the things that we were chatting about before, and I think it's also relevant, is that when you actually go into college or university, especially for the schools that you guys have come from, the realization that there are capable, smarter, able peers that you have. And a lot of people who graduate from leading schools such as yourselves always feel, were you inspired by your colleagues? Were you inspired by your peers? Were you inspired by your classmates? And I don't know if all of that is myth, Or was there an element of inspiration in the people that you worked or which you studied with?
I have a story like the one great thing about engineering college, and this possibly could have happened in any other stream, but I had like, you know, like a rickshaw wala son studying with me, and he had very different goals with doing engineering. I was doing it because my parents told me do this, like, you know, there's nothing else to do. He was doing it because he needed to get his family like a better life. And that kind of gives you a very different perspective. Like, and you'll see this in every engineering college. There will be people who'll be in that college purely for survival, not to get a degree. Most of us were there to get degrees, but then there are these kids who want to change their life through that college. Right. So that's something I gained. I don't know if I would be able to gain that through BMM. I might be wrong in saying that. But in engineering, you'll see a lot of cases like this. Guys who are on scholarships, guys who've taken loans from their uncles to study.
Right? I mean, like from a professional standpoint, just getting a professional degree in comparison to a mass media degree is just a benchmark, right? You know you'll get a better salary in comparison to somebody at least at that entry level in comparison. So it's about sort of setting yourself up.
Adding to that, like right now I'm a YouTuber, but the moment I say that, okay, I've done engineering, it automatically gives me a little bit of credibility. Yeah.
Is, you know, there are a lot of people who are struggling, who are doing a lot of hustle, but in general in the Indian education system and the society, there is lack of creativity because what's happening is we are making the same people over and over again without giving them the opportunity to express their creative side. Yeah, they don't think. So we are trying to create copy. The person A should be similar to person B, but you know, if they are able to express their own creativity, then we have a unique engineer, and that's what's going to drive. So even in you guys' case, when you guys shifted to creativity, that's what drives you. In my case, I stuck with engineering, the technical background, but I got an opportunity to express my creative side, you know, get that out in the world. So that's what's lacking.
So one of the interesting things that we've also discussed internally very many times is that when you look at India as an educated population and you look at, for example, a developed country like the US as an educated population, and you see engineers as a percentage of that educated population, in India the skew is massive, right? For out of every X amount of educated individuals, there's at least 3x in comparison to developed countries, number of engineers to that ratio. Crazy excess, right? But at the same time, we very rarely see hardware ingenuity. We very rarely see actual innovation that's engineering driven. Creativity, exactly. Like just sort of adding on. Why do you think, is that just like you can't express yourself? People don't think out of the box? What is causing that?
Because of the you know, mental barriers that we have created and the barriers that society has created for us. I'll give you an example. Because of Square Off, we've got an opportunity to travel a lot, work with many great minds, you know, who are working in the tech space, but they're not necessarily engineers. So I happen to know this designer who has created a 3D printed humanoid, and he has no technical background at all. He's just an sculptor and designer, and so when you see such cases, you realize that they, you know, rather than limiting themselves, they just started expressing their creativity with whatever tools they had available. So back then when he started, 3D printing was the boom. And if you'd see, you know, if you would rewind back a bit, you will see that most of the success stories come when people start expressing creativity with whatever tools and whatever resources they have around them, and then the energy just starts gathering around them, and people start taking this forward.
Also, like, I feel like, you know, of that section of engineers in the educated part of Indian society, a lot of people have just taken up engineering to either do an MBA after engineering, or to leave India and go abroad, or to just get a stable salary. No one really wants to innovate as an engineer.
Not many people have a clue of what they want to do. They'll get an MBA, but they are not sure what they want to do after that. It's a job, but in what field and how?
True, but another reason is that the environment is not, why the environment is not conducive is because all our funding from the government is going into like the basics, or we don't even know where it's going, very frankly. But yeah, it's going into some places.
But it's funny you say that because India actually spends quite heavily on education. Now the question is where it actually goes.
Where it actually goes is the biggest
question. No, but
out of the small percentage that's left for us.
So then the question actually comes back is, do you actually think that this is a problem with not just the individual who's going to college because they have different objectives that they have to meet, but perhaps in the institution, the framework that we don't think of the design element or the creative element of engineering or any sciences for that matter in our academic system? Do you think that's more of an issue or is more of an actualization?
More like a catch-22. Like you don't innovate because you don't get the right environment because you don't innovate. It's like a vicious loop from hell.
When I used to go to college every day dedicatedly, but I was never found in the classroom. The teachers used to always ask me that we see you, every day in the college you're found, but you're never sitting in lectures. So my first and second year, they gave me a really hard time that, you are the one who's doing time pass and who's not attending lectures and stuff. But from the third and fourth years, they started realizing that yes, there is a room in this campus and you will find me over there. You want to find me, I'll be there 24/7, people over there know I come in daily, so it's not that I'm in the canteen or I'm just wasting my time, but I'm over here. And then that's when things got a little easier, but I had like 10% attendance. But
also I want to add, like, this is what you call a real engineer. Like this is, and you'll find like one person like this in every engineering class. 1 or 2 people max. You'll agree with me. I'm sure you were like the only person in your class.
So it's the same context when I say I went to law school, but I'm not a lawyer. So when people ask me what's your qualification, that's always my.
I think it's common not only with engineers or lawyers, but I think with anyone in college in general. Even for me, I think I've had the privilege of studying in India and also in London. And I would say most of my time that I learned, actually, if I look back, was not in the class, but actually meeting with those people that we're trying to say who we can learn much more from outside classrooms. Most of the learnings, be it non-academic or academic or otherwise, is outside the classroom.
So that's the thing. We actually had this conversation with the folks who were on the first podcast that we did, and so there were Sushila Aditya, who's also running an RFID company and runs Hipcask, an alcohol analytics company. He was talking about how our degrees are like badges, and we're wearing this on our sleeves and walking around, and people define you by the badges you currently have on your sleeve. How's that been?
In fact, I've written about this also, that nobody has the foresight to tell if what you're doing 4 years down the line will even have an iota of correlation with the degree hanging on your wall. So just stop, like just save your breath and don't keep asking people about ye kiya to wo kyun karna tha. Like,
but doesn't it work in your favor sometimes? Like, would you have been, so for example, if you're carrying this heavy badge on your shoulders, more than on your sleeve, IT Bombay, right? Something that many people die for, kill for, live to do. Perhaps you're not directly using any of that in your core domain today. But when you do give that introduction, like even you said, people will obviously give you the second audience, right?
Yeah, the people are floored, definitely. So like, it's a name that everyone looks at as a very big name. So
does it help in business?
Definitely. Like every time people say that, someone from IIT is there. Yeah, so it's.
So I'll tell you a bit about my experience with this. It's the badge. It really helps in the initial days, but once you've started, doing your thing and starting excelling at that, IIT, especially in Bombay and in India, is stereotyped. So whenever I go to events, I go to meetings, people refer to me as, okay, kaun se IIT se engineering kiya hai? And I'm like, nahi, I've done from a normal engineering college, and it's not. Yeah, right. So that's the thing.
IIT wale nahi bana rahe.
And to add in, and what we learned from this is, if you realize in all 5 of our cases, we enrolled in a course because we thought ki badge aa jayega, so things will be good. But very early we realized that, if we start doing what we love, we were hungry for knowledge. So we started exploring whatever resources, options we had back then. So in your case, be it law school, my case, engineering. And even you mentioned that it was all learnings, the major learnings was outside classroom. So then, because you've enrolled into something, you continue with it, but then you hustle to